Alright, this one is a doozy. Considered widely to be one of the hardest decks to play right now. Patron Warrior is a deck that plays very differently from many other decks right now and has a lot of intricacies to it. There's no way that I can possibly fully teach Patron Warrior in just a few games that we're going to display here, but at least you can see the general idea of it. The patron lists themselves are quite varied. Part of the variance is preference. Some people value their matchup against aggro more and put in a second unstable ghoul, for example, or a second dread corsair. And some people value the matchup against control more and try to get that extra damage through with Grommash Hellscream. This is simply one of the many variants of Patron. Other cards that can be included and are often included include Commanding Shout, Loot Hoarder, second Unstable Ghoul, second Dread Corsair. You see some Pilot Shredders, Sen'jin Shield Masters, Sludge Belchers, Dr. Boom, sometimes Blood Mage Thalnos. There's Cruel Taskmaster, there's Harrison Jones when the format is enough weapons, even a variant that has Shield Block and Shield Slam. No matter what the list is, though, the idea is the same. You control the early game with weapons, and with the small minions, you stay alive. Really important card in this deck is Death's Bite. Oftentimes, it's really important to leave that last charge of Death's Bite in order to be a free whirlwind for either Frothing Berserker or Grim Patron. At this point, most people have had the combo played against them, but just to review, the combo is generally playing the Warsong Commander into the Grim Patron, and then getting people in there, usually by starting off with an Inner Rage on the Grim Patron, and then a Whirlwind effect. The possibilities are limitless. Sometimes you don't even need to play Warsong Commander, you just win with Grim Patron, because something as simple as turn 4 Death's Bite, attack a minion, turn 5 Grim Patron, Inner Rage the Grim Patron, and swing the Death's Bite. We'll create a board of a 5-1, a 3-2, a 3-3, and a 3-3. Against some decks, you just win, and against some other decks, they might have an answer, which makes you not actually want to do that. But yeah, basics: survive the early game, draw a bunch of cards, try to set it up a Battle Rage to draw more cards, get your cards reduced with Emperor Thaurissan, charge in with damage. The tricky part is so many of the matchups are different, so I will attempt to show a matchup where it's Frothing Berserker based, a matchup where it's Patron based, and one more.
I will fight with honor. Victory!
Paladin turns out to be one of the best matchups for the deck. Always look to keep Death's Bite and Fiery War Axe. One thing that I should mention, by the way, is Fiery War Axe has always been one of my favorite cards and is very efficient, but I will mention some top players have been cutting one Fiery War Axe just because they see all the early game minions with it, obsoleting the second Fiery War Axe, which gives room for one more card, and any card that you can fit in has a really specific place here. I kept the Armor Smith because it could have been aggressive Paladin, and I already had a Death's Bite. So in this matchup, you can actually win with either Grim Patron or Frothing Berserker. I will play the Armor Smith. Had to think for a moment. The Armor Smith matches up somewhat poorly against the Shielded Minibot because Shielded Minibot just attacks twice into it. It looks like it is going to be an aggressive Paladin. One thing I should mention is ideally against aggression, you keep the Armor Smith because then you can gain a tremendous amount of armor with Whirlwind effects later. But oftentimes, if you're facing off against an aggressive deck, you're forced to play her early anyways, for otherwise you will die.
Reporting for duty.
So the early game is a simple idea. You're just trying to stay alive. When I mentioned you can win with Grim Patron or with Frothing Berserker against aggressive decks, your most common win condition is through Grim Patron. But more importantly, your most common win condition is simply by staying alive and then by outvaluing them. You could even win with just simple cards such as Dread Corsair, Gnomish Inventor. Oftentimes, the amount of patrons you want to get is very different. For example, against a control deck, this would be a terrible play. You're only getting a 3/3 and a 3/2. But against an aggressive deck, this amount of patrons will suffice.
Reporting for duty.
Whirlwind is, of course, a really good card against the super aggressive decks. The opponent is running low on cards. This is actually about to get gross. Sometimes you have to calculate really quickly how many cards you want. I think I may have drawn one more card than... Actually, it just turns out that armoring up is more important. I should have put the banana on the thing that can actually split. It seemed like I was going to Whirlwind at the beginning there, but as it turns out, if you have... One of the big things about Patron also is if you have... One of the big things with Patron is if your opponent has anything with 2 or less attack, your full health Patron will just split indefinitely. And that's one of the really cool things about the Patron. For example... And though I could draw 6 cards for 2 mana right now with Battle Rage, I'm going to value the armor up more because it is an aggressive deck, and the sole goal nearly is to just stay alive when you have such strong board control. Without armoring up, the opponent could have conceivably done something like True Slayer Champion Arcane Golem and dealt 8 damage, and then death would occur. This one turns out to be one of the easier ones. When you're up against aggro, you just try to stay alive. And that's a much easier goal than like counting up exact damage, I think.
Let the games begin. Victory or death.
Against the mage, pretty much just looking for Fiery War Axe or Death Spite, I think. Slam can also work. Again, a common theme is assume that the opponent is the aggressive version. In this case, I'm assuming Tempo Mage. But if there ever comes a time when the metagame changes and more people are playing control type decks than aggressive decks, then perhaps you don't assume aggressive decks. Perhaps. Worth mentioning, Slam should be used even if you don't obviously have a kill for something. In this case, it helps set up for the Death Spite second Whirlwind effect. But oftentimes, Slam is fine just to cycle a card and get some minor benefits. The opponent is a Mech Mage, so in this case, the win condition will likely be Grim Patrons again. One thing that is worth mentioning that I perhaps didn't emphasize enough in the first matchup is that Armor Smith can also be a win condition. you gain a bunch of armor against an aggressive deck, and they simply don't have the means to kill you in time. Here you can see the goodness of Despite. It's killing a minion, it's killing 2 minions, it's drawing a card, it's setting something into execute range. Despite oftentimes is at its best when it is multi-purpose like that.
Powering up. Portals online. I am ready.
Face. Once again, I'll try to set up. Acolyte of Pains ideally draw 2 cards. In this case, I might get the 3-card Dream. When I say ideally draw 2 cards, I should say ideally you position your Acolyte of Pain so they draw at least 2 cards. Sometimes against aggressive matchups you just play it as kind of a shield block because you might force your opponent to attack into it and then you take 3 damage in a card and you deal with damage. But against control decks you'll very much so want to draw at least 2 cards from these.
I serve the Fire Lord.
I'm at an uncomfortable life total here, but this hand, if it survives, looks like it's going to win in a spectacular fashion. Emperor Thorsten will reduce 3 combo pieces, cards, mana cost, and a lot of damage will be done. And that's a Cloaked Melganus. Huh. That's not very fair. I can't even activate Despite.
I can't play that. I can't play that.
Hey, we can edit this into the unstable portal win condition video from Tempo Mage. I can't even activate the Armor Smith to gain health. Okay, the opponent might not have any damage, and I think that's what I have to count on here.
My sincerest apologies.
It's probably going to be Gnomish Inventor armor up. Oh, haven't lost. In fact, this could be a Armor Smith win game. So Execute's going to want to be done on Melganus. I can't actually do too well, as it turns out. Due to the mana restriction. I got on all my commands at least. Phew.
Well played.
Oops. Okay, Druid. This is one of the matchups where the win is most commonly achieved through Grim Patron. I'll keep a Fire War Axe in order to deal with an early game minions such as Shredder or Zombie Chow every so often. One of the things to consider sometimes when you're a Druid is not attacking. Ah, very good by him. Because then you don't give the opponent the armor, so he can't battle rage, giving himself an extra card. So that's actually an opponent who knows what's going on, pretty much. And oftentimes, against control decks with this deck, you may want to consider not armoring up on turn 2. Against a Druid, though, I would always armor up on turn 2. Here I will play the Acolyte of Pain, because if it gets silenced, I will still be able to draw many cards with Battle Rage. Also, I have no obvious way to activate the Acolyte of Pain. It's generally best to not play this unless you're activating it, but in this specific case I have absolutely nothing to go with it. This would be one of the games where Inner Rage is particularly good because I have the Grim Patron. If I had a Death Spite in my hand, I would just win the game if I swung at him with the Death Spite, and then next turn, Grim Patron, Inner Rage, Whirlwind. Druid is one of the classes which cannot deal with that, and oftentimes, if you happen to get that off a bit late, you just win the game. These exact 3 cards on turn 4 or 5. In this case, I can still do the same thing 1 turn late, which will still be good. The amount of patrons that'll be in here is going to be a lot. Perhaps even better is that I will be able to play Grim Patron, Inner Rage, and Battle Rage thanks to the coin. And then all of those cards will be reduced with Emperor Thorsan, and it's looking really good. Throughout playing the deck, you start to develop a little bit of a rhythm. You have to sometimes think about when the right time to play Deathspite is, because it's always the turn right before you're about to do something big. Or it's just, the first Deathspite is oftentimes going to be there simply to help clear as a weapon, and to activate minor things like Acolyte of Pain, but every once in a while you get the multi-purpose, you both kill a 4 health minion and a 5 health minion, and you spawn 2 patrons, and you gain 4 armor, and you draw 5 cards, and when that happens, it's really good. Don't concern yourself too much about like overdrawing. Sometimes that'll happen with Battle Rage. Consider it a first world problem if you randomly burn a card. It's rarely going to matter in this deck. If you happen to be in a position where you are drawing that many things. That thing's unfortunate, that's one of the better cards. Okay, so I can draw another 5 cards, but that would currently not be very good. Yeah, let's, I had to clear that up first to get more guys. There's some consideration to be made about trading first and then whirlwinding, because then there are less guys. Sometimes you can get punished by having a full board with this deck. But against a Druid, I'm not that concerned. For example, if this were the board against, let's just say, Paladin, then double consecration would kill all of this stuff off because these 3 do not spawn patrons. And sometimes when you're playing against a patron, you can organize the board to be a really specific clear board so you can actually wipe them out with area of effect. For example, Swipe right now will not spawn patrons either, but I don't really see a way that he can follow that up well. Oh, he did it. I don't have lethal on the board. Woo, go him. Can just casually draw 5 cards. Kill him. Oh well. Well, that was the deck at its best. Alright, Warrior-Warrior matchup. This is one of the matchups where Frothing Berserker might be the win condition. If it's Grim Patron Warrior, then Grim Patron is generally the win condition, but if it's Control Warrior, oftentimes a Frothing Berserker will be required to do the extra damage. This is one of the matchups where armoring up on turn 2 is possibly incorrect because you'll want to be damaged in order to make use of Battle Rage.
Strike.
Here I'm actually considering playing absolutely nothing. No, I will play the Fire War Axe and just pass. Because it looks like the Deathbite isn't going to be used for a while. I have no usage for the Whirlwind effect. And if I knew he was Patron Warrior, I would not actually attack him, but he could be Control Warrior, so I'm going to attack. In the long term, if it's Control Warrior, the full pattern is generally done, where you draw the cards, you play the Emperor Thaurissan. Very important that Emperor Thaurissan needs to reduce the cost on the actual combo pieces, otherwise you won't have enough mana to kill if he is a Control Warrior.
What now?
If the opponent is Patron Warrior, all I need to do is draw Grim Patron and then I'll win the game, because I have all the other cards.
Strike.
Alright, picking up that Battle Rage is pretty exciting, since I have all these minions. And the Whirlwind effect. And Battle Rage. Worth mentioning that I picked up Emperor Thaurissan is it would be a very big mistake to play Emperor Thaurissan next turn, no matter what card I drew, because it would not reduce enough combo pieces.
By the power of Ragnaros, I have the power!
Really, I might just... No, yeah. Get damaged, Whirlwind, Battle Rage. Second Battle Rage, that's too many cards. I think I play Acolyte of Pain. And I'll throw in a 2-3 over the 1-3, since this armor might actually be a lot. Worth mentioning that next turn, playing Emperor Thaurissan would still be a mistake, because even though it's a lot of cards getting reduced, none of the combo pieces are in this hand, so that doesn't quite work out. Some people may be concerned that I play Acolyte of Pain with 8 cards in hand, so it's possible for the opponent to overdraw me, but that would require him utilize his combo pieces to overdraw me, which isn't that important. This is an unusual position right now where I have too many cards in hand, and they are all pretty bad cards. Deathbite will be played, and if I had any amount of combo pieces, I definitely would have overwritten the War Axe and then attacked with it. And just so I don't overdraw this time, since that's at 1 health, I will Enrage this guy.
Strike.
Hey, give me a minute.
I'm getting quite nervous because the opponent is a Grim Patron Warrior, The Gnomish Inventor proved his Grim Patroness. I have absolutely none of the combo, even though I've drawn far more cards than he has. And I have a lot of cards drawn in my hand, but my hand is useless.
Armor made to fit.
That belongs in a museum.
Well, the good news is I have the other Despite, and that's his Harrison Jones used. Though mostly that's bad news. Other good news is he was actually forced to make a play that he really did not want to do there, I have to imagine. Very dangerous to play the Unstable Ghoul in this mirror. Unfortunately, I still have none of the combo pieces. Like, if I have Patron right now, I can go off of his Unstable Ghoul, but I actually have absolutely nothing, and it's really tragic right now. I think what I want to do is Battle Rage to draw cards, but first I have to... Well, I'll play the Acolyte of Pain, I suppose. Grommash Face is also fine. Well, I have absolutely nothing. It's not great, but it's fine. I'll use his Activator for free. It'll make it a lot easier to finish him in the future. This is one of those cards where you kind of play if you don't have anything better to do. And in this case, I was in a really strange position where I just don't have anything good to do. I am going to need to start setting up quite soon. At least if there's any fortune on my side, it appears that the opponent is holding a hand that's more Frothing Berserkery than Patrony, because Patron, he would just play out the Patrons and do the Whirlwinds. Frothing Berserker, he actually needs to have the counter cards. Like, for him to have nothing right now, it basically means his hand is either very similar to mine, or it tries to win with Patron. It tries to win with Berserker, because if he had Patron, he would just be winning. And this Emperor Thorsan continues to burn a hole in my pocket, because even though I can reduce a bunch of cards, and by the way, his hand has a lot of cards that are reduced, playing Emperor Thorsan and reducing few of the combos is not a good play. Alright, in this case I'm reducing a commander and a Frothing Berserker, so this is now reasonable. I do want to develop Despite though. Okay, this is fine. I actually need to keep the War Axe around because I may need to break the Despite with it. This is the part of the game where you have to do a lot of math. So, quick rundown on the math. Currently, my combo is only Warsong Commander plus Berserker. Whirlwind will add 1 for every minion on the board, so if I were to play Commander Berserker, that would create 5 minions on the board, so Whirlwind is plus 5. Despite plus Fiery War Axe is also plus 5, because it's a Whirlwind effect, but it's also plus 4 because Despite will attack and then I replace it with Fiery War Axe. So currently the combination is 2, 4, 7, 8 mana. The Inner Rage will add an additional 3 damage. So 2 plus 4 is 6, or 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 4 is 11, plus roughly 5 is 16, plus roughly 3 is 19. Really important to keep the count going early, otherwise you're going to rope when you're starting out. And keeping track is a lot more important than just like playing it all and then hoping that you're right, because sometimes you're wrong and then you lose the game. At present time, I'm nowhere near lethal. But if I just get 1 turn of setup, I have no doubts that I can make it lethal. Okay, the Grim Patron. This is where I'm actually going to have one of those games where I get to... Okay, and by the way, I'm also going to specifically leave the Gnomish Inventor out. Very important here. Just to go for face instead. I also believe it's time to use the Battle Rage because I actually have everything. But I can't Battle Rage into anything important because I already have everything important, so I'm just going to hold it. But we're going to take the moment to calculate the damage. Actually, I should absolutely just Battle Rage because it's super lethal next turn. And I'll go ahead and slam. Just cycle these cards. Maybe draw something that'll help out in the future. Alright, so I have all the combos. One of the things to remember is Warsong Commander plus Grim Patron. These are like some really quick things that you need to know when you're playing the deck. Grim Patron plus Warsong Commander plus Despite plus Inner Rage, like I said at the beginning. You get a 5-2 with your Inner Rage and a 3-3. You Whirlwind, and then you get 5-2, 3-3. Well, you get 4 Grim Patrons, one of which is 5, 5, 3, 3, 3 is 14. Plus this 4 is 18. So even with just this and this, it's 18 damage. You add in the Whirlwind, and that's very likely going to be an additional plus 9? You can no, plus 6 more. But more importantly, there's going to be a Frothing Berserker, which will also add a lot of damage, so it's going to be a lot of damage. You can even finish him with the Frothing Berserker route here, with just Warsong Commander Frothing, but I guess here I'll display the combo instead. The combo with both.
Everyone, get in here! Everyone, get in here! Everyone, get in here! Everyone, get in here!
Worth mentioning is there's often small ways to get an extra 1 damage in certain situations. Like here, for example, attacking here and then whirlwinding adds more damage. I'm just doing this for the sake of demonstration.
Everyone, get in here! Everyone, get in!
Like there's a lot of small things. Attacking, making sure that your 1 attack minions attack his minions to add 2 to your Frothing Berserker because your minion attacks his minion, they deal 2. Also important is whirlwinding first and then attacking your 1 attack minion into their guy, because then if your guy were to die, if it were to attack their guy, then you would miss out on the 1 whirlwind damage. So there's all these small things in between, but that's the grand picture.